So good afternoon, everyone. So today I am going to cover the Jenkins topic. So let me tell you about myself. Graduated in National Institute of Technology in Warangal and having 3+ years of experience in IT industry and specialized in AWS DevOps. And I have been certified as AWS Solution Architect and Developer Associate. So this is what about me. So today I'm going to explain you what is Jenkins and why we should use Jenkins in our real-time projects, or what is the use cases of the Jenkins. So Jenkins is nothing but it's a CI/CD pipeline. So how many of you heard about the CI/CD pipeline? I don't know, but the CI/CD pipeline means continuous integration and continuous deployment. So continuous integration in the sense you'll be first build, and then test, build the code, right, and the build and test. So and also deploy in the dev or production or staging environment. So that is continuous deployment, right? So continuous integration, continuous deployment. So code build, code test, code deploy, and these are the parts of the continuous deployment. CI/CD pipeline means like, today I'm going to explain you there are two kinds of CI/CD pipelines. There are AWS CI/CD pipelines and then as well Jenkins CI/CD pipelines. So today I'm going to cover you on Jenkins CI/CD pipeline. So general, this is what the general structure of Jenkins used to be like. So let's quickly move into the Jenkins, and let me know what, let I tell you what I will be covering in the next course outline. So how to create a job. There are many jobs in the Jenkins, right? So I mean, what are these jobs at first? So how the workflow and the infrastructure is going to start, and all those kind of things I'm going to explain you in the this course. Okay, so configuring system, how to create executors for each job to divide on one system as well, and how to configure email notification when job fails, and why should we use these jobs at first. So that answer, and then configure global security, so like what it is going to do, and managing users, manage plugins, configure credentials. So how to configure that, this is the real time. It's not like the theoretical part, just telling about the CI/CD pipeline and giving some definitions, but I'll be going to explain in the real time application, like how after installing the Jenkins, inside the Jenkins, so how, what are the operations we are going to perform. So at that kind of level I'm going to explain you. So and then these are the add-on topics. I'll be telling of the loads, statistics, and manage nodes to manage in the Jenkins. So let's now quickly move into the the notes, what I have been prepared for the Jenkins. First you should able to understand what is CI/CD pipeline, right? So let's move into that first. Okay, give me a second please. Yeah, I'll be going to the notes. There is Jenkins architecture. So see, this you see in the screen. So this is the Jenkins architecture. So which I have been written step by step. So Jenkins starts from the development team. Okay, so what the developers do, they will be committing the code, right? Because there is front end. According to the developer perspective, I mean, like if there is a web application, you need a front end and back end code, right? To write where it should, when you click on the UI, so where the operation should move on, right? So the developer will write the code, right? Generally we deploy in the EC2 instances, or we use load balancers, and we use some kind of EC2 auto scaling groups for maintaining our web application, right? So inside the code, and or like EBS elastic bean stack, we directly upload the code there. But here in the Jenkins format, how it's going to work is like, you will commit your code, all the front end and back end code in the GitHub. Okay, you will be committing in the GitHub. So the developer, there are many developers. N number of developers will, different modules. Actually, each developer has. If it is your web application is more and it's having more too many pages, so then obviously there will be so many modules, payment module, or like there are many things in the UI, right? So those modules, so you can commit number of modules in the GitHub, and from the GitHub, the Jenkins is going to pull the code, right? That is, it is going to pull the code, and each module is going to act as a job. Okay, so what this job is going to do, if you want to update the versions, releases, there are too many releases, right? So let's say the best example is like let's say in the Paytm, if you use Paytm, the UI for every monthly or 2 months, the UI is going to be changing. Right? The UI in the sense like the buttons in the UI is going to change, right? So that means they're making a release in the sense like they're updating their web application, they're updating the front end code, they're updating the UI. So just a second, yeah. So I mean, like, yeah, this is what they're updating the UI and all those things. So yeah, so when we pull the code, it is like we are going to pull the codes in the form of modules. So each job is going to run each module. So modules in the sense like we talk, there are many sections in the UI. So that is what, right? From there, Jenkins is going to pull the code from the jobs which are there. So how the integration between the GitHub and Jenkins going to be? So before pulling the code from the GitHub through from the Jenkins, so there should be integration between the GitHub and Jenkins, right? So how we are going to do is like in Jenkins itself, you are going to manage credentials. Okay, you'll go to the manage credentials and give the GitHub credentials in the Jenkins. So that's what you're going to do. So yeah, so that's what you're going to do. So the plugin options as well, like like there will be too many plugins in the sense like after pulling the code from the GitHub, once your code is inside the GitHub, so I mean once your code is in the Jenkins, the modules, the jobs will be running, right? How to create a job, how to run I'll be going to cover all those things as well. So it will pull the this is just the architecture. Please, like understand the architecture first. First thing, the developers commit the code in GitHub. From the GitHub, the code comes into the modules. All the modules are there in the Jenkins. So Jenkins will pull from the GitHub. So how it is the integration is going to happen is you will be entering the credentials of GitHub in Jenkins. So it is integrated. So from there, what you do is you add the modules when the start. I mean when the jobs started working, the releases, the new updates are going to be done, right? So once you create and update the job, that module, but that particular payment module is going to update. So in the UI as well directly. So in before how they used to work on to, there will be too many releases. If you want to update your UI, they used to at the night time they used to make your servers down, and then they used to update, and then at the morning time they used to prepare entire code they used to update. But in Jenkins CI/CD pipeline, you don't need to do it is a dynamic. You can just update dynamically. You don't need to do with the static. Okay, so that is what you can do with. And then in the Jenkins you can also add the plugins, Marvin, Bin. They are testing tools, like after building the modules you can test here itself in the Jenkins. You don't need to go to the I mean, like, it will not consume much time. And then later the continuous deployment, there are different stages you can deploy in dev, test, or production level, right? So yeah, this is what you are going to do. This is the general architecture of Jenkins I'm talking about. Okay, so if there are any doubts, I'm going to cover more on the more to the participants. So how this CI/CD pipeline is going to be. CI/CD means CI means continuous integration, CD means continuous deployment. So inside, after logging into the Jenkins, what are the operations we are going to do? I will be explaining those as well. So I'm going to explain those as well, like how to create a job. Okay, there is an answer in go to new item and create a job. In the Jenkins UI you have a new item, so if you click on it, it will have create a job. You can. So the Jenkins architecture, as we have been discussed, right? Like the developer commits the code into the modules in the GitHub. Okay, first he will commit the code, which is UI, which is having backend code, right? So UI front end and backend code is there, so he will deploy in the GitHub. So from the GitHub, Jenkins is going to pull the code. So how it is going to pull? How we are integrating Jenkins and the GitHub means in the Jenkins, you will go to the manage credentials and give the GitHub credentials and save it. So now you have been integrated Jenkins and the GitHub. So once in the GitHub, if someone the developer commits the code, it will automatically Jenkins going to pull in the form of jobs, and you can create for each module of the code you can create each job. Okay, that is what this architecture is going to tell. And then later in the Jenkins you can have been installed many tools like testing tools and Selenium, and you can attach testing tools to test the code of the each module, and then you can different stage you can deploy them in the testing, in the dev, and then the production. Okay, so why do we use CI/CD pipeline? Means we have continuous releases. We want to update the UI. Let's say you have in the Paytm, you have different modules, payment section you have, and then you have some other module like booking tickets for movie tickets, right? So that is one module, and then you also recharge your mobile. That is another module. So there are many modules in the UI in the right. So if you want to update them dynamically, you use CI/CD pipelines. Okay, so that's what. The CI/CD pipelines about the Jenkins pipeline. This is the general architecture of Jenkins. So we will go practically where the Jenkins, I mean like the Jenkins, what we are going to perform, like how how to create a job in Jenkins. You'll go to new item and create a job, and then how to configure system, how to create an executor for each job to divide in one system as blocks, and how to configure email notification when the job fails. So there are many jobs. If the code, the modules of the code when captured from when the Jenkins pulled the code from the GitHub, so those modules we can turn into and create a jobs, right? So if those jobs are failing due to some reason, some errors, so if you have to monitor the job, there will be number of jobs in the Jenkins. So if you want to monitor in them, so how you will configure an email notification when the job fails, right? So those I am going to explain you, and then manage Jenkins. Configure global security means it's like IAM. If you discuss AWS, we have identity access management. We manage the users and you create a policies, read write permissions, right? The same thing in the Jenkins as tools like creating the, giving the permissions, read write permissions for the jobs, and update the jobs, and then like configure the jobs and all those kind of operations we do. So real M means means user level access, and authorization means read write permission. Let's like IAM policies in it's like IAM policies in the AWS. Okay, so read write permissions to overall job, run, view credentials, right? So these are all the things we use. So manage Jenkins, manage. So I told you manage users. If you want to manage users, you should go to manage Jenkins in the Jenkins UI, and then go manage user section, and then you manage the user. So you can also plug in install role based plugins. You want, there will be number of plugins in the predefined plugins, as well as you can also create your plugins, own plugins as well. So this is what you can use plugins in the sense like there is, as in the architecture I told, Selenium and some other testing tools you can plug in. Okay, you can attach to Jenkins and test your modules of the code, test your jobs. Okay, that's what. And you how to configure credentials. I told you, right, in the integration, if you want to configure, then you should go to manage Jenkins and configure the credentials. Okay, there you have to give the GitHub username and password in the Jenkins section. Go to manage Jenkins, configure credentials, and give the GitHub credentials, username, password. Once you have given and saved, now your Jenkins is integrated with the GitHub. Okay, and global tool or configuration, you can integrate different tools plugin like git and mav, and like where you which location you want to go means you have to go to manage Jenkins and global tool. So these are the some of the options for different operations you want to do in the Jenkins. Okay, list of your user account activities if you want to check, like it's like cloud trial in AWS. So I'm comparing this Jenkins with the AWS, like, so similar operations will be there, right? There also we do the same kind of operations, and here also we do the same kind of operations, right? So not completely same, but some services are going to be matching similarities we have, right? So that's what. So here, if you want to go to CLI, you can also deploy the start run job through CLI. In the AWS, we have Amazon CLI, AWS command line interface. Here we have Jenkins CLI as well, command line interface. So this is what the general things. There are still many operations. If I have been according to the given hours of my section, I will be covering a lot as much as possible. It depends on the participants how is able to get the knowledge on the things. So this is what, like, I'm going to explain everything on the Jenkins depending on the hours given, depending on the participants. So now let me go to the slide. So add-on topics I have told you. So now let me move to the the projects. So as I told you, integrating different tools plugin, I'll show you practically in the real-time projects and make you and show to the participants, so they will be learning good in the Jenkins. So lab setup, the participants should have high speed internet, desktop, laptop. Okay, so that the session will go smoothly without disturbance. And then additional courses, I'll be providing the documents and videos from my side, whatever there on my database. So the Jenkins. So they're going to helpful in the future for the participants. Mock interviews, or we conduct mock interviews to the participant who wants to evaluate themselves before applying for a job to understand their knowledge gap. Okay, this is about the mock interviews, and especially MindMajix is going to give a certification to the participant like by completing the Jenkins. So you get this certification. This is going to helpful for your jobs. Thanks for attending the demo. Please share your feedback and contact us for queries related to course scope and schedule references, cost and payment option. For any queries, you can go to info@mindmajix.com and you can email that. And then if you want to contact India, the 9246333245, and if you contact USA, 917456840 Thank you so much for giving this opportunity.